I've always been a bit of a couch potato. When I was a kid, my parents used to work long shifts, so I was often left home alone. This was okay. Like any other millennial kid, I would distract myself by watching the Disney Channel or playing Nintendo. During the weekends, my parents usually rested, so we stayed at home watching movies together and ordering pizza. We weren't the healthiest, I guess, but it was fun. And my parents still took me places from time to time. Chuck E. Cheese, the movies, comic book conventions. We just weren't like the outdoorsy type of people. You weren't going to find us going biking or camping or anything like that. And nature and I never really kind of matched up. Even when my school had field trips to the state parks, or anything that involved exercising, I made up excuses and I wouldn't go. But at some point when I was about 14, I started gaining weight. I was never very big, just bigger than most kids my age. And since both of my parents are chubby people, my mother got obsessed with me trying to be healthier. So during the weekends, we went to the park so that I could exercise, which I hated, particularly because the park was full of annoying little kids. And as if going to the park each weekend wasn't enough, my parents also tried to encourage me to exercise while they were working, and not to eat so much junk food. Did I listen to them? Of course not. The most I exercised was when I moved from watching TV in the living room to play World of Warcraft in my room. I mean, after all, my parents won't figure it out, right? I could simply lie to them and say, yeah, I went for a walk, and yes, I did watch your Zumba videos, Mom. But eventually, they caught up with my little lies. And so my parents grounded me and took my laptop away from me and moved the living room TVs to their rooms so that I couldn't use it. My parents also told me to hang out with my friends, to go and play basketball or skate like the rest of them. Although I wasn't keen on exercising or doing anything that involved physical activity. But I had nothing else to do in the afternoons, and I thought spending time with my friends was not that bad of an idea. After all, they were pretty cool and I rarely spent time with them after school. One day, my mother picked me up from my friend Hunter's house, and while Hunter and I were packing up my stuff, Hunter's father told my mom that he and his family will be hiking and camping for the weekend. Before asking me about my opinion, my mom asked Hunter's dad if I could join them, and explained why she wanted me to go. Hunter's dad agreed. When my mom told me about this, oh my god, I wasn't happy whatsoever. But at the same time, I didn't want to disappoint Hunter and his dad. Also, my mom and I made a deal that if I went camping with them, I could get my laptop back. So, World of Warcraft, here I come. So I accepted, and on Saturday morning, my dad took me to Hunter's house. Hunter and his dad were already ready. They seemed very excited and prepared, unlike me. We hopped in the truck with their dog Balbo and drove outside of town to a place about an hour or so away from us. I can't really recall how far or where because I fell asleep. It was really early. When I woke up, we were in a parking lot. The parking lot was in the woods and there were a few cabins around. And I asked, is this where we're going to stay? Hoping that somehow our hiking adventure would turn into a chilling at the cabin adventure. Hunter and his dad laughed. No, kiddo. This is where it all begins. You see, we're leaving the car here, and we're going to hike through the woods. And we're going deep, so get your legs ready, Hunter's dad said. Immediately after that, we grabbed our backpacks and stuff and started our walk. I was so out of shape, I started feeling exhausted 30 minutes after we began walking, but decided to carry on. Hunter and his dad noticed when I was tired, and sometimes we'd quickly stop for me to sit for a few minutes and drink some water, but other times, no matter how sweaty I was, they'd just tell me to carry on, or it's okay, you can do this. Your body just needs to get used to it. Hunter was kind of a sporty dude. He was part of the football team, and his dad was a veteran who now worked as a football coach at a local college. The man was built like a rock, and it seemed as if he could never get tired. Now, a few hours passed, but I don't know how many, because Hunter and Mr. Larson told me it was better if I didn't know about time. So, whenever I asked how long we had been walking, the answer always was, sometime. And when I asked how long it would take to get there, the answer always was, not long. They refused to talk about time, because according to them, it was better not to tell me, so that my mind wouldn't focus on the pain. Their positivity didn't help much. I was sweating like a pig, constantly out of breath and constantly holding onto Balbo's leash so that he could pull me around. Balbo was a huge dog that was very energetic. Of course, for a dog like him, being outdoors for hours was a dream. And thank God he was a Belgian Shepherd and not a Shih Tzu, so that he could actually pull me. At some point, I asked Mr. Larson how long it would take us to get where we were going to camp. And he said he didn't know exactly, but that as soon as we found a place that seemed good enough to put our things, we'd rest there. Don't you know where we're staying? We're just wandering around? I asked. No, it's our first time here. But we'll find a place soon, son. Don't worry about it, Mr. Larson said. My dad and I hike a lot, Will. When you hike, you just walk and observe things around you. You admire nature. Don't worry, we'll find a great spot to sleep, Hunter confirmed. We rested again and had some food, and pretty soon after that, we were lucky to find us a good place to camp. We put everything together, but it took ages because I'd never been anywhere near a tent in my whole life. Hunter and his dad kindly showed me how to set it up. And although I kept screwing it up and it took many attempts, I finally managed to do it. They also taught me how to start a campfire and other things that are important if you want to survive in nature. I never expected it, but I started to enjoy it. Now about 7 at night, we were chilling by the fire, cooking some s'mores, when I suddenly felt the urge to pee. The place where I had been peeing was close to where we had set things up, but still out of their view. As I was doing my thing, I heard something moving. It seemed as if something was coming from the distance. Then, there was a loud sound. It sounded as if it was made by an animal, but I couldn't identify it. However, the sound was enough to scare me. I zipped my pants and quickly ran to the campsite. Did you hear that? What the hell was that? Was that a bear? What was it? I asked while clearly still agitated, trying to listen. It was the sound of an animal. I can't tell which one, but it's not odd to hear those things out here, Mr. Larson said. Well, what if he comes here? Are we going to be okay? I asked. Listen, it's not near us, kid. Trust me. If it were, Balbo would let us know, he said as he stroked the dog on its head. You'll hear sounds like that, and probably worse when you're camping in a place as big as this one. It has wild animals. Well, how are we going to defend ourselves if an animal comes nearby? I asked. Don't worry, Dad has our backs, Hunter said. I didn't want to ask any further questions. And soon after that, we told some ghost stories. We did this for ages until it was time to go to bed. Before we went to our tent, I went to piss again. And I'm not going to lie, I was wary of the surroundings because of the sound I previously heard. I tried to be quick, but before I had the chance to turn around to go back to where the tent was, something surprised me. Something large was behind me and made a creepy, screaming sound. I screamed and tried to turn around to hit the thing and defend myself. But it turns out it was only Hunter trying to be funny. He apologized, but at the same time, he couldn't stop laughing. I was actually kind of embarrassed. I'd never been one to be afraid of things. I love all horror films and some ghost stories. But I guess being in the open made me paranoid. Hunter and I slept in one tent while his dad slept in the tent opposite to us. Balbo slept outside. He was incredibly smart and a well-trained dog. He slept outside without a leash or anything. Mr. Larson and Hunter were positive he wouldn't leave us. It took me some time to fall asleep, and I just laid there with my eyes open, looking around the tent. And at some point in the night, I heard footsteps. I tried to convince myself that it was only the wind, but they seemed to be approaching the tent. I quietly called Hunter's name, but he was so deep in sleep. Before I had the chance to try to pat Hunter's back to wake him up, there was another strange sound. It was a mild sound, but it was annoying. I couldn't make it out at first, but then I noticed what it was. It was a scratching sound, like someone was scratching our tent. I sat up in order to see better, and also I had my cell phone with me and used it to light towards the tent door. And there was something outside the door. I could only see its shape, but it was a long, thin creature. It had long hands with 4 very long fingers and pointy, coffin-shaped fingernails. The long creature also seemed to have long, straggly hair. I was sitting there trying to think about what animal it could be. And then suddenly, the creature's long nails unzipped our tent, and the next thing I knew, I could see its face. Its face had human-like features, eyes, nose, and a mouth, but its whole entire face was caved in on itself. I screamed as hard as I could and I threw my cell phone at it. My scream immediately woke up Hunter, who asked me what had happened. I looked back at the door, but the creature wasn't there anymore. However, the door was unzipped. Mr. Larson immediately entered our tent and asked if we were okay. I saw something. It was a creature. I don't know. I just saw something opening our tent. I cried to him. Hunter looked confused and hesitant. His dad, who did notice the tent door was open, looked worried. He left our tent and shone his flashlight around. Hunter and I got out of the tent as well. And Mr. Larson noticed Balbo was missing. We all looked at each other in disbelief. I need to go look for Balbo. He can't be far, Mr. Larson said. He grabbed a gun from his backpack and told Hunter there was another one in there in case we needed it. It won't take long, I promise. Get inside a tent. He told us and left for the woods. We did as he said and went to Mr. Larson's tent. Hunter grabbed the other gun for protection. We can't be left alone, I said to Hunter. Where's your dog? Do you think he's okay? Would your dad be alright? What did you see? Hunter asked me. I answered his questions, but he didn't seem to believe me. Is there any chance you might have dreamed that? My friend asked me. I haven't been able to sleep, Hunter, I said. It was real, I continued. Listen, I know you're scared and you probably think you saw something. Come on, dude, Hunter said. I'm gonna go look for my dad. No, Hunter, don't. He told us not to leave, and I'm being honest. Think about it. Where's your dog? That thing must have taken it. My dog probably saw a fox and went to chase it. We should go look for him and Dad, Hunter said as he left the tent. And I followed him. I mean, hell, he had the gun. As soon as we exited the tent, we saw something. Creature was right in front of us. He was standing next to our tent and turned around and looked at us directly in the eyes. Now I screamed while Hunter quickly cocked the gun. Before he had the chance to point it at the creature ran at him, knocking him down, and the gun flew out of his hand. The monster was on top of him, and I noticed Hunter try to punch the creature, but it quickly grabbed his arm and opened its mouth. He had razor-sharp teeth. Hunter was weaker than it, and he stood no chance. I saw where the gun had landed, grabbed it, and without hesitation, shot at the creature's back once. The thing was bleeding. It stood up and left Hunter alone, but then it looked at me, screamed loudly, and then ran towards me. I shot at him again several times, and the creature didn't even manage to come near me. He fell and bled. His blood was not normal, it was as black as the night. Hunter stood up from the ground and came towards me. A few seconds later, Mr. Larson appeared. "I heard shots, are you guys okay? What the hell happened?" he asked, but immediately after that, he noticed the creature on the ground. He walked towards it. "What the fuck is that thing?" he asked as he looked disturbed. "I had no idea, but it was coming for us, Mr. Larson," I said. The monster was bleeding from his mouth and screeching. Mr. Larson then decided to end it all and shoot the creature once in the head. And it died after that. We didn't go to sleep that night. We decided the best thing was to get rid of the creature's corpse. But where his corpse is will remain a secret, because it's what we promised to each other. Mr. Larson told us that when he was a child, his grandma told him stories about a similar monster with similar features who lived in the local forest and preyed upon local farm animals. He said he always thought his grandma said that to prevent him from hiking and playing in the forests. But we now know it was not only a legend. We know the creature exists. We found Balbo the very next morning. In fact, he was miles from where we had been camping. He was laid up with another female dog. It looks like he didn't spend the night alone. The ride home was quiet, as we didn't have anything else to say. When my mom picked me up, I didn't tell her anything either. Hunter and I talked about the event a couple of times, but then decided not to touch the topic ever again, as we had promised Mr. Larson. And even though we did get rid of a monster, I still felt bad for what we did. Hunter and I remained friends for the rest of our school years, but when he and his family moved to another state, we kept in contact from time to time. Needless to say, none of us go into the woods anymore. We might have gotten rid of this monster, but as Mr. Larson told us, as Granny used to say, the woods are full of secrets.